$10 trillion, buried under a mountain in a city most people have never heard of. That number is not an estimate built on wishful thinking. It is the confirmed value of a real deposit, sitting beneath the hills of a small city in southern China called Heiwan. And the metal inside that mountain is not gold, it is not oil, it is not lithium. It is something far stranger, far more useful, and until very recently almost completely ignored by the rest music of the world. The metal is called rubidium, and the moment China confirmed it was sitting on the largest known deposit of it in human history, the strategic calculations of several powerful countries changed overnight. If you enjoy videos about the hidden forces quietly reshaping the world, hit a quick like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people. Now, music. To understand why a single deposit of an obscure metal sent shockwaves through government offices on the other side of the planet, you first need to understand what rubidium actually does. And that starts with something that will genuinely catch you off guard. What rubidium actually does. Rubidium looks completely unremarkable. It is silvery white, soft enough to cut with a kitchen knife, and light enough to sit comfortably in your palm. There is nothing about how it looks that hints at what music is capable of. It honestly looks like a piece of candle wax, but put it near water, any water at all, even the moisture floating in the air on a humid day, and it does not dissolve, it does not rust, it explodes. Rubidium reacts to humidity so aggressively that scientists have to store it inside vacuum-sealed tubes filled with inert gas, just music, to stop it from blowing up on a shelf. That is not an exaggeration. That is standard lab procedure for anyone who works with it regularly. That explosive energy, when harnessed correctly, becomes something extraordinarily precise. And in the modern world, precision is everything. Think about your phone's GPS. When it tells you to turn in 300 meters, it is pulling live data from a network of satellites orbiting Earth. Those satellites have to agree on time down to less than 1 microsecond. A single microsecond of drift in your location could shift by hundreds of meters in an instant. The technology that keeps all those satellites perfectly synchronized is called an atomic clock, and rubidium is what powers many of them. Rubidium atomic clocks are not just in GPS satellites. They are embedded inside telecommunications towers, military coordination systems, and the digital banking networks that process billions of transactions music every single day. Every time your bank moves money electronically, rubidium-powered timing is part of that chain. Every time a fighter jet coordinates with a satellite above it, rubidium is in that chain too. Most people have no idea. In space travel, rubidium plays a role in ion thrusters, the engines used in deep space probes that do not burn explosive fuel. Instead, they push tiny charged particles to create slow, steady, nearly endless propulsion. It is not dramatic or fast music, but it can run for years without stopping. That is why NASA's Dawn spacecraft was able to orbit 2 completely different bodies in the asteroid belt across an one-year mission. Standard rocket engines could never have sustained that. Ion propulsion made it possible. In hospitals, rubidium isotopes get injected into a patient's bloodstream during certain types of scans. Because rubidium behaves similarly to potassium inside the human body, it flows naturally through the cardiovascular system. Doctors can watch it move in real time on a screen, revealing blockages, detecting cancer in early stages, and identifying conditions that would stay completely invisible through any other method. And in defense, rubidium shows up in infrared detectors, precision targeting systems, music, and the electronics that determine whether a guided weapon reaches exactly where it was aimed. The difference between a precision system working and failing music can come down to timing accuracy measured in nanoseconds. Rubidium is what delivers that accuracy. A metal that looks like a block of candle wax is quietly music, keeping GPS running, powering space exploration, helping doctors see inside the human body, and making military systems more precise than ever before. That is rubidium, and the world barely produces enough of it to keep up with demand. That supply problem is older than most people realize, and music is far more serious than it sounds. The world is already running out. The entire world produces somewhere between 4 and 5 tons of rubidium per year. Global demand sits between 15 and 20 tons annually, every single year. That is not a small gap. That is a structural supply crisis that has been quietly building for decades, growing wider every year as technology became more dependent on this exact metal. The reason production is so low comes down to how rubidium exists in nature. It does not form in concentrated veins the way gold or copper does. Instead, it hides inside other minerals scattered in tiny trace amounts through rocks that nobody mines specifically for rubidium. You mine something else entirely, like lithium or cesium. And if the conditions happen to be right, rubidium turns up as an accidental byproduct. Music. You cannot build a reliable production plan around it. You find it when you find it. Handling it safely adds another layer of difficulty. Because of how violently reactive it is, rubidium requires specialized equipment, carefully controlled environments, and workers trained to manage a metal that can ignite from ordinary humidity. That combination of unpredictable sourcing and genuinely dangerous handling kept global production small for decades. For a long time, that was manageable. Demand existed but was modest enough that the system held together just barely. Then the 2000s changed everything. GPS went from a military-only tool to something that 5 billion people carry in their pockets. Smartphones became the core infrastructure of daily life across most of the world. Deep space exploration began moving faster than at any point since the Apollo era. Medical imaging shifted from a specialty procedure available at major hospitals, music, to a routine diagnostic tool used worldwide. Military music systems became more dependent on precision electronics than at any point in history. Every single one of those shifts pushed rubidium demand higher. Production never kept pace before the discovery we are about to get into. The countries with any meaningful rubidium resources were China, the United States, Canada, Russia, and Brazil. Even combined, their reserves were limited and often difficult to access. The global rubidium market was already stretched dangerously thin. Music running a growing deficit that the world had managed to ignore because the consequences had not become visible yet. Then a geological survey team in Guangdong province found something that made the size of that deficit look very different and very urgent. The mountain that changed everything. The city is called Huan. It sits in northeastern Guangdong in southern China. Most people outside the region have never heard of it, but underneath the hills surrounding that city, surveyors confirmed what turned out to be the largest known independent rubidium deposit ever recorded anywhere on Earth. 180,000 tons of rubidium ore. To give that number some scale, mining experts classify anything above 2,000 tons as a major discovery. This deposit is nearly 90 times that size. It is not a big find in the way that phrase usually gets used. It is in a different category entirely. What made it genuinely historic was not just the quantity. Music. It was the nature of the deposit itself. Every previous rubidium discovery in history had been a byproduct, something stumbled across while digging for something else. In Huan, rubidium was the main event. It was the reason the deposit was significant. There was no other primary mineral driving the discovery. That had never happened before in recorded geological history, not music once. The deposit was officially confirmed by China's Geological Survey's music and reported through state media in 2018. But a confirmed deposit sitting in the ground and an active national strategy built around it are two completely different things. What happened in the years after that confirmation is where this story shifts from geology into something far more significant. Because China did not simply start extracting rubidium and selling it on the open market. It started building a plan that goes much further than any ordinary mining operation. China's music plan that goes far beyond the mine. Most countries that confirm a major mineral deposit do the obvious thing. They pull the material out, sell it as a raw commodity, and take the revenue. China looked at Haiyuan and saw something else. Not a commodity, a foundation for long-term technological and economic leverage. In the years following the deposit confirmation, Chinese researchers developed a new concentration process designed specifically for the chemistry of Huan's ore. Traditional rubidium extraction is slow, expensive, and generates significant toxic waste that has to be carefully managed. The new process reportedly increases recovery rates substantially while cutting carbon emissions and reducing hazardous byproducts. For a metal as reactive and technically demanding as rubidium, that kind music of processing improvement is not a minor upgrade. It is a competitive advantage that other countries cannot easily replicate without years of their own development work. Then in June of 2025, Chinese scientists achieved something that had never been done before at industrial scale. Researchers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences successfully extracted 99.9% ultra-pure rubidium directly from salt lake brine. Salt lake brine is the dense mineral-rich water found in ancient dried-up lakes and salt flats, music, and it contains rubidium dissolved within it. Nobody had ever pulled rubidium from that source at that level of purity before, not in a lab setting and certainly not at the scale needed for industrial use. This mattered for a very specific reason. Hard rock rubidium, music, the kind extracted from mountain ore like the Huan deposit, is expensive and technically complex to process. Brine extraction is cheaper, faster, and opens up entirely new sources of rubidium that were previously, music, inaccessible. China was not just developing its existing deposit. It was simultaneously inventing new pathways to rubidium that the rest of the world had not figured out music yet. Alongside the extraction breakthroughs, China launched a rubidium recycling program designed to recapture rubidium from industrial waste streams and reuse it rather than discarding it. This extends the strategic advantage far beyond the mine itself. China's rubidium supply is not dependent only on what can be dug out of the ground. It grows continuously from its own industrial output, becoming more self-reinforcing over time. Music. And then, in March of 2026, China announced the discovery of the world's second-largest light rare earth deposit in Sichuan province, adding 9.67 million metric tons of rare earth oxides to the music global picture. A month later, in April 2026, music. China confirmed it holds the world's largest known reserves of 14 separate critical minerals. Music, including rubidium, cesium, gallium, scandium, and germanium. These are not obscure laboratory materials. They are the core ingredients in semiconductors, advanced communications infrastructure, defense electronics, and next-generation energy systems. The goal was never simply to be the world's largest rubidium producer. The goal was to build a complete supply chain: mining, refining, processing, music, manufacturing, and finally, exporting finished rubidium-powered products, all under one coordinated national strategy. Selling raw rubidium to the world gives China revenue. Selling the atomic clocks, the ion thrusters, the medical imaging machines, and the precision defense systems, music, built from that rubidium, gives China something that lasts far longer than revenue. When the countries buying those products need to repair them, upgrade them, or build new versions, they return to the same source. That relationship gets embedded into the infrastructure of modern technology. It becomes part of how the world operates, and that is a very different kind of music power from simply owning a mine. Understanding what that looks like in practice means looking at it from the other side of the equation, specifically from the United States, America's uncomfortable reality. As of 2019, the United States sourced 95.6% of its rubidium imports from China. Not most of it, not a strong majority, nearly all of it. Music. For a metal the US government officially listed as strategically critical, that level of dependence on a single foreign country, music, is a structural problem that goes far beyond economics. The United States added rubidium to its critical materials list over a decade ago. The recognition was clear. The response was not fast enough. Domestic rubidium reserves exist in the United States, but are geologically difficult and expensive to access. Music. The infrastructure needed for processing specialty metals is outdated. Environmental permits for new extraction sites move through a slow approval process, and there is essentially no domestic processing music industry capable of handling rubidium at meaningful scale. Even if raw ore were suddenly available tomorrow, this problem is not limited to rubidium. Around 80% of the rare earth elements used in the United States come from China. These are the materials embedded in fighter jet components, smartphone processors, electric vehicle motors, and satellite communication systems. The country that built the world's most advanced military and technology sector constructed much of it on raw materials it does not control. History has already shown what that exposure looks like when it gets tested. In Music 2010, China briefly restricted rare earth exports to Japan during a diplomatic dispute. The effect was immediate and severe. Prices spiked globally within days. Supply chains froze. Companies that depended on those materials scrambled to find alternatives that simply were not available fast enough. The crisis eventually resolved, but the warning was impossible to miss. When one country controls a resource that modern systems depend on and chooses to apply pressure, the consequences arrive fast and hit hard. Rubidium creates the same exposure, and the combination of the Huan deposit, the 2025 brine extraction breakthrough, and the 2026 confirmation of Chinese dominance over 14 critical minerals has made that exposure significantly larger than it was before any of those developments. The United States has taken steps music in response. Critical mineral strategies have been announced and funded. Domestic investment initiatives are music underway. Formal partnerships with allies including Canada, Australia, and several European nations are being built to diversify sourcing away from single-country dependence. Canada remains an important rubidium producer. Australia holds substantial rare earth resources. The direction of U.S. policy is correct, but building new processing infrastructure from the ground up takes years. Making geologically difficult domestic reserves economically viable takes years. Training a workforce to safely handle reactive and specialized materials at scale takes years. These are not challenges solved music by a single policy announcement or a single budget increase. And while that long process unfolds, the country holding the largest deposit in known human history is already several steps ahead. The real question is not simply whether the United States closes the rubidium gap. It is whether the broader pattern this story represents gets taken seriously before the consequences of not taking it seriously become impossible to ignore. The question the world needs to answer: China's position in rubidium does not automatically lead to conflict. That framing, music, is too simple and ultimately too short-sighted. The history of resource dominance tells a more complicated story, music, and in many ways a more durable one. When one country controls a critical material, it rarely turns that control into an obvious weapon right away. That would be economically damaging for music everyone, including itself. What actually happens is quieter and harder to see from the outside. Music. It negotiates from a position of strength. It sets the terms of trade. It determines which partners get priority access and at what price. Companies around the world building rubidium-powered technology have to design their products around supply music conditions that are set elsewhere. Research priorities bend toward whatever the supplier makes available. Over time, the dependency deepens and dismantling it becomes progressively more difficult and expensive. That is not a dramatic crisis music moment. It is structural dependency operating as completely normal commerce. It is the most durable kind of influence there is. There is another dimension to this story that rarely gets the attention it deserves. A deposit of 180,000 tons does not leave the ground without permanently transforming the landscape around it. Rubidium processing, even using the improved techniques China has developed, involves chemical treatment, industrial waste management, music, and significant disruption of the land and water systems nearby. The communities living near Huan will carry the environmental consequences of that extraction music for generations. Workers handling a metal this reactive face genuine daily safety challenges that careful policy and modern technology can reduce but cannot completely eliminate. There is a real irony embedded in the critical minerals story at a global level. The metals needed to build smarter, cleaner, more connected technology. The ones powering GPS navigation, deep space missions, cancer diagnostics, and precision defense systems often have to come out of the ground through processes that are disruptive and costly for the people living closest to the source. The benefits flow outward to billions of people across the world who will never live near a mine. The costs stay local. That tension does not sort itself out automatically. It requires deliberate choices about who carries the burden and how the gains get distributed fairly. Those choices are being made right now quietly by a small number of decision-makers in government offices, corporate boardrooms, and geological agencies that most of the world pays very little attention to. The story of rubidium is not really about one metal. It is about a shift that has been building for years and is now becoming impossible to ignore. The age when powerful countries could build transformative technology without carefully tracking where every raw material came from, music is over. Every GPS satellite, every ion thruster, every PET scanner, music, every precision defense system is built on materials that exist in specific places on Earth, controlled by specific countries. Music subject to specific political decisions that can change without warning. Rubidium made that reality visible in a concrete and concentrated way. But the same story is already playing out across dozens of other materials in deposits that have not yet made headlines. Music in countries that most of the world has not yet thought about in this context. Each one of those deposits is another piece of the same larger picture. Who controls the raw materials that the future runs on? Music. What are they planning to do with that control? And what happens to the countries that waited too long to ask those questions seriously? The mountain in Guangdong is not simply a mine. It is a signal. It is showing us that the resources powering the next century of human progress are not evenly distributed, are not freely available, and are not going to be shared automatically by anyone. The countries that find them, process them, music, and build the technology around them will carry real advantages for decades. The countries that depend on others for those materials will carry real vulnerabilities. That signal is not going away. And the decisions being made in response to it, right, music, now are already writing the first chapters of a future most people have not started thinking about yet. If this kind of story is the one that keeps you curious and coming back, hit like, subscribe, music, and turn on notifications. There are other metals, other deposits, music, and other breakthroughs quietly reshaping the world right now, and we are going to cover every one of them. Here is what I want you to think about and answer in the comments below. If your country woke up tomorrow and could not access a single critical mineral that its music, phones, satellites, hospitals, and military all depend on, what would you want your government to do first? $10 trillion, buried under a mountain in a city most people have never heard of. That number is not an estimate built on wishful thinking. It is the confirmed value of a real deposit. Sitting beneath the hills of a small city in southern China called Heiwan, and the metal inside that mountain is not gold, it is not oil, it is not lithium. It is something far stranger, far more useful, and until very recently almost completely ignored by the rest music of the world. The metal is called rubidium, and the moment China confirmed it was sitting on the largest known deposit of it in human history, the strategic calculations of several powerful countries changed overnight. If you enjoy videos about the hidden forces quietly reshaping the world, hit a quick like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people. Now, music. To understand why a single deposit of an obscure metal sent shockwaves through government offices on the other side of the planet, you first need to understand what rubidium actually does. And that starts with something that will genuinely catch you off guard. What rubidium actually does. Rubidium looks completely unremarkable. It is silvery white, soft enough to cut with a kitchen knife, and light enough to sit comfortably in your palm. There is nothing about how it looks that hints at what music is capable of. It honestly looks like a piece of candle wax, but put it near water, any water at all, even the moisture floating in the air on a humid day, and it does not dissolve, it does not rust, it explodes. Rubidium reacts to humidity so aggressively that scientists have to store it inside vacuum-sealed tubes filled with inert gas, just music, to stop it from blowing up on a shelf. That is not an exaggeration. That is standard lab procedure for anyone who works with it regularly. That explosive energy, when harnessed correctly, becomes something extraordinarily precise. And in the modern world, precision is everything. Think about your phone's GPS. When it tells you to turn in 300 meters, it is pulling live data from a network of satellites orbiting Earth. Those satellites have to agree on time down to less than 1 microsecond. A single microsecond of drift and your location could shift by hundreds of meters in an instant. The technology that keeps all those satellites perfectly synchronized is called an atomic clock, and rubidium is what powers many of them. Rubidium atomic clocks are not just in GPS satellites. They are embedded inside telecommunications towers, military coordination systems, and the digital banking networks that process billions of transactions music every single day. Every time your bank moves money electronically, rubidium-powered timing is part of that chain. Every time a fighter jet coordinates with a satellite above it, rubidium is in that chain too. Most people have no idea. In space travel, rubidium plays a role in ion thrusters, the engines used in deep space probes that do not burn explosive fuel. Instead, they push tiny charged particles to create